Welcome back to this week's episode of On the Level Leadership. I am tackling a sensitive subject this week, and that's on the subject of mental health and how to manage it in the workplace. If you're back, thanks for being here. And if you're new here, my name is Tammy, and I'm a leadership and career development coach. And I'm here to help you be the best leader you can be so you can grow in your career. So, why am I tackling the mental health piece this week? And why do we care on the leadership channel? Well, the main reason we should care as leaders is because mental health is part of a whole person approach to how we lead. We are more than just widgets. We're more than just the machines that come in and do the work and do the bidding of the bosses. We are human beings. And when you manage people, you are managing human beings. And those human beings are whole. We are not compartmentalized into work and home. We are whole people. We have whole approaches. We have a complexity of relationships and environments and situations that affect us personally and in very different ways that can affect our mental health. And this is a cause that is very close to my heart. For those who may or may not follow me on TikTok, you would have seen a video I did shortly after we lost Twitch. And really, it was me sharing my experiences with depression over the course of my life. And as I enter into perimenopause, it's definitely something that has reared its ugly head again to some degree. And it's something that I have to try to keep at bay using several different tactics. Now, this video is not about how to take care of your own mental health, because I'm going to say that that's between you, your naturopath, your physician, your psychologist, your psychiatrist, your family. That's your bailiwick, right? But what I will say is this. Is as leaders in the workplace, there are things that we can do to help facilitate people and support people so that they can continue to be productive members of your team, even so they're going through a lot of shit. So what are those things? Well, there are 5 that I want to share today. These things helped me when I was struggling, and they also helped me as a leader when I had team members who were struggling. Unfortunately, I've been on both sides of the fence on this one. And I just want to caveat that this is probably one of the most difficult things because it's super personal, it's super sensitive. People don't know how to deal with emotion in the workplace. As a Gen Xer, I was taught to suck it up, buttercup, go to work, stuff it out, do what you need to do. Don't worry about your feelings, stuff your emotions. That's kind of what I was taught. That said, I do come from a less than healthy environment. But that said, if you talk to any of my Gen X counterparts, they'll tell you it's pretty much the same. You went outside and played till it was dark. Nobody cared where you were till dinner time. So anyway, the point being is that we were, for many, many eons and decades and generations and in male-dominated professions, really saw this need to kind of stoically kind of work through things and just not let the mental stuff kind of bother you. But here's the thing is that we are learning more and more how integrated our mental health is to our performance, to our motivation to want to do good things at work, to our ability to continue to be productive people in society. So the first thing you can do is establish lines of communication. This is really important. Without an open and honest dialogue between you and your staff, it is impossible, and I mean impossible, to support people through these challenges. That means that you as a leader are 100% solely responsible for creating an environment where employees actually feel safe sharing their experiences and their challenges with you. If they feel that there's going to be a reprimand, if they feel like they will be career limited in some way, they won't share that information with you. They won't feel safe to do so. And they may actually continue to decline in the absence of that support. Feeling supported helps the employee know that if they need to get help, they will be backed up in that process. And I think that's really the key, is to try to get that employee help as much as possible. There are times when help is not available. There are times when help is not possible. Those situations are different. But for the most part, if somebody's going through a life shift, a divorce, a separation, a loss, a depressive episode for whatever reason, then those situations are usually self-limiting in a time frame. And as long as they feel supported through that process, they can usually continue to perform at some baseline level until things improve in their lives again. The second thing you can do is educate yourself and your staff on the various mental health disorders. Now, in the Government of Canada, one thing they did do well, actually, is we had a mental health awareness program that everybody took. It was called Mental Health First Aid. And really what it was about was recognizing when people have certain disorders, the kinds of behaviors or the kinds of reactions they may have to certain things. It was really about decreasing the stigma overall, but also increasing the awareness, because we fear what we don't understand. That's just human nature. And so being able to raise awareness and understanding what mental health disorders can coexist with you within your work environment is really important. And And they taught in these courses not only strategies in dealing with the employees that are struggling with these particular issues, but also how to recognize when someone is starting to spiral and when to call for help. And that's really important, especially if you have someone who has a mental health disorder that may cause a psychotic event or break. That's really important because you're not a health professional, likely. And even if you are, you need to be able to recognize certain symptoms so you can reach out to the appropriate help as needed if your employee starts to really decelerate in their work environment. This is super important as well. If you have someone who has a propensity towards violence, we had violence in the workplace in our work environment, and it was something that really had to be carefully navigated in terms of reparations and relationship and building trust and really trying to make the environment as safe as possible. The third thing you can do as a leader is, where possible, offer flexible working conditions. So, people with mental health disorders tend to have cycles. I know that when I had depression in my 30s and I was quite burnt out, there were times of the day where I was more productive than other times of the day. I had to sleep in the morning. It was impossible for me to get anything done at 9 o'clock in the morning. And so having a bit of flexibility in someone's schedule where they maybe work from 10 to 6 instead of 8 to 5, or they work from noon to 8 because that works better for them in their cycle at that point in their mental health struggle or challenge or cycle or wherever they're at. Having flexible hours is really a key component to that. The other piece is something that we're struggling with right now, actually, generally as organizations, is the notion of remote working versus non-remote working. A lot of people feel that if you have a mental health issue, that if you're working from home, that you're not productive. But actually the opposite was true for me, because when I was struggling with depression, I actually found it better to work from home because it was a quiet, safe environment where I didn't have to put on any pretense. I didn't actually have to put on the mask to go to work. I could just do my work, focus on what I needed to do, and not have to deal with the social ramifications of my depressive episode. I recognize that sometimes this might be difficult to do because in certain work environments, flexible schedules might not work as well, especially in sort of like shift-based environments. Or if you're actually on a production line, it can be very difficult because you can't work from home on a production line. That said, I would encourage you to look at ways to be flexible as much as possible and wherever possible. The fourth thing is provide access to resources. Now, this is a tricky one because not all organizations have access to employee assistance programs. In the government of Canada, the United States government, for example, they have access to these employee assistance programs where you can call in and talk to a therapist for 3 to 6 sessions or what have you, and kind of work through some of your challenges. A lot of the times it's work-based stress that they will deal with, but they often will also look at what other factors you may have and may then refer you out to other therapists that maybe aren't part of the EAP circle, but that they have connections to in the network so that you can get ongoing support beyond the EAP process. It could be the development of support groups. Maybe you have a number of employees that are dealing with stress-related incidents, and maybe they can create some sort of support group and invite a mental health specialist in to support them in that process. So be creative around what you can provide access to as an employer. If you yourself are an employee and there is no access within your workplace, I know that for me, I had access to EAP, but it was very limited in terms of what they could do for me. Then I had to look for resources elsewhere. When I had postpartum depression, I looked for a local city-run support group that cost me $0 to go to and got me the group support I needed to move beyond my postpartum depression and anxiety. And it was really an integral part of my recovery process. So again, there may be resources out there that are not going to cost you a lot of money, but that will provide you the support you need as an employee and potentially the support your employees need if you're the manager, to helping people get through these sort of events that they're going through. And the fifth thing is creating a positive work environment. Kouzes and Posner talk about encouraging the heart. This is a huge part of leadership in terms of behaviors. It's not about being shiny happy. It's not about being fake. It's not about bullshitting people about how good things are or not good things are. It's really about creating an environment where you're civil, you have conversations, there's high levels of communication, people are recognized for their efforts. If someone is struggling with mental health, the littlest little recognition of what they're doing right as opposed to focusing on what they're doing wrong can go a very long way to encouraging them to continue. Having had suicidal ideation myself in my younger days, I can tell you that you don't want to feel like a burden when you're depressed. You hate being a burden. And people don't off themselves thinking that they just want to give up. They off themselves because they don't want to be a burden to the people around them anymore. And that includes their workplace potentially. So it's super integral that as leaders, we recognize and honor that we have a vital role not only in helping people feel safe and being able to be productive in their workplace, regardless of what they're going through, but that you may actually play a role in ultimately saving a life if you're careful about how you manage your employee going forward. Now, that doesn't mean you walk around on eggshells, but it does mean that if you do these things where you open communication and create a safe space for people to have a chat, to allow flexibility, to be supportive, to encourage the heart, man, you're going to do great things. But I will say this, as a Christian, there's a quote that says, what you do to the least of us, you do to me, right? So what you do with those that are suffering in your workplace, how you handle that, how well you handle that will be recognized by those around you. And you will see that not only will that employee's performance increase, but you know what? The performance of the entire team will. And the loyalty that that team has with you will increase in spades. Why? Because they see how you're treating the one that's struggling. That means they know that they're supported in everything that they do. And the trickle-down effect of those behaviors is immense. And while there are mental health awareness days and mental health awareness months even, I do want to encourage you to try to practice these things on a regular basis because it has to become part of our leadership vernacular. We have to start just stepping one step at a time in the most positive direction with respect to this. One of the aspects of mental health struggles is burnout and fatigue from the work, from our careers. And if that's something that's of interest to you, this video might be of interest to you as well. In the meantime, take care of yourselves, folks. Until next time.